This is Karen Atwood, Director of Consumer Credit Counseling Service of Northeastern Iowa. I am here with Cindy, a certified credit counselor from my office. And we're going to spend the next half hour talking to you about credit cards, making the most of them. Credit cards can be great. They can be absolutely wonderful, or they can be your worst nightmare. It all depends upon how you handle them. When I started consumer credit back in 1984, there was really no such issue as credit cards unless you had a lot of income and a lot of assets. There was an American Express, plus you had your retail cards like Penny's and Sears and Ward's and those kind of cards. And they were special cards that you could get just for purchases at those stores. There was no, we didn't have a MasterCard and Visa in common use, especially with middle income to lower income people here. We applied for American Express when we were first married and were declined. There was no reason. My husband had a good job. We were purchasing our home. But American Express required that you have a $250,000 asset value at the time. Well, we didn't have that. So needless to say, that was way out of our reach. When clients would come in to see me, it would be because they had debt owed in the community to gas stations, to local retailers, places like that. And $1,000, $1,500 would be the outside amount. Today, we're looking at a whole different thing. What would you say the average debt owed today is?
With credit cards?
Yes.
Anywhere between $20,000 and $30,000.
And that's money owed. That's not, and that does represent things purchased. So we become a society of buying more than what we need, want, or can even house. Look at the size houses that are being built. You don't see any 2-bedroom houses, or even 3-bedroom. They've got to be 4-bedroom with mud rooms, with extended garages, etc. And those are just corners for all of our stuff, the stuff that we put on our credit cards. So if we use credit to purchase the things we need, to keep track of them, so we can return them if necessary, or to know where our money is going, that's great, and that's what we want. But if we use credit cards just for purchasing, just for, because we're in the mood, we're hurting ourselves. I should say at the outset that this is a call-in program. So if you have questions on credit or anything else, give us a call, 234-1441.
And you are so right, Karen. You know, how you use your credit, if you use it unwisely, that just makes your financial life become stressful and difficult. And let's face it, there's enough stress with everyday life living. You know, you don't need to add that additional burden about what you owe for credit. Basically, there is a cost, you know, to purchasing an item on credit. It means that you're going to be willing to pay extra for it, and that extra is interest. And the extra amount, you know, of interest is determined by the rate of interest you pay, how the interest is calculated, the length of time the interest is paid, and you may also pay additional fees to use some loans and credit cards. So you really have to calculate the true cost of an item, and that includes all the fees and interest that you're going to be expected to pay. It's not uncommon at all that for people that use credit cards to spend 2 to 3 times more than if they're willing to pay cash for the purchase. So simply by saving up and purchasing that item outright rather than charging it can save you a lot of money.
You should know before you go out and make these purchases that this is going to happen. Many times people will make the purchase purchases, then are charged the interest and then complain, nobody told me. Well, your disclosure, or if you don't want to read the disclosure, give the company a call. The number's on the back of your card. And if you need to ask them those questions, ask them. Is there interest on this? When will the interest start? Those kind of things that will help you. You should also limit the number of cards you have. Don't go carrying on you 10, 12, 15 credit cards, because we see people with credit cards with that many that are being used. You can have a lot of credit cards, just don't carry them on you. Maybe 2 at the outside, one for gas and one for purchases, or one for food and one for other things. A gas card, you're only going to use at a gas station. But your MasterCards and Visas are almost all universally used these days. And that's good and bad. It's easier for you, but it's bad when it comes to losing a card because you don't really know what it was being used for or where it is.
You also have to kind of take into consideration too that there's more than one type of credit. You know, there's revolving credit where you make the payment. It may vary as your balances change. The installment credit where you borrow a specific amount for a specific period of time, and that monthly payment usually remains the same. Or there's service credit, and that primarily is you pay for a service at a later date. Utility companies usually offer this kind of a credit. You're utilizing your electricity, your gas, your water, but you're not paying that bill until a later date. So, you know, there's all kinds of different things that you want to consider when you actually are asking to borrow money on credit or a loan. And that is the 3 C's of credit, is capacity, collateral, and character. You know, if it was your money that you were lending somebody, you would want to know if they have the financial ability to repay the loan. That's called capacity. And if they have any property you have to back the loan, that's called collateral. And then if you're going to make your payments and how you've handled other loan or credit card payments in the past is called your character. And those are the 3 things any lender, credit card company, whomever is going to be looking at you to prove when you ask them to give them money, or to give you money.
The purpose of using credit is to pay later. But you should be paying within 25 days of when you charge. Not 30, not 40, not 60, 25 days. So you should already have it in your mind that your money is going to come in and you'll be able to take care of this debt when you do the charging. And that takes us back to basic budget. We all should have a basic budget. We're now 3 months into the new year. Sit down with a tablet and make out your budget. Start with your rent or your house payment, your utilities, telephone, cable, those expenses that you regularly pay and that are pretty much a fixed amount. This month you may have water coming if it's quarterly, or if you pay monthly, it's going to be part of your monthly budget. If you have food assistance, you're going to be spending cash in addition to your food assistance, so that should be in your budget. Insurance, renter's insurance or homeowner's insurance should be in your budget. If your homeowner's insurance is part of your house payment, that won't be a separate item. You think of some more things that are in the budget, Cindy?
Utilities, groceries, prescriptions, like you said, medical and car insurance, life insurance, obviously your rent. You got to remember, not only do you pay like gas and electric, but you pay water. Some people pay garbage. Sometimes it's included in the water bill, but all of those things have to be included, you know, because they're fixed monthly expenses. Basically, they're going to be there every month if you own a home.
And if you're paying for something on credit, you've got to take your income for the month. If you're paid weekly, 4 times your net. pay twice a month, it's twice. Otherwise, if it's once a month payment, you know what your net is. That is the bottom line. That's after taxes. Subtract from it all your budget things. What's left? If there is something left, you have money to pay a credit debt. If there's nothing left, you better stay away from the credit cards, because all that's gonna do is rob one of the other expenses next month.
Or you also, if you have a positive balance at the end of your budget, we absolutely recommend that you pay yourself first. Save some money. When you set up a budget, that's the first thing you want to do, is schedule something for savings. It may not be a lot. It could be as little as $5, $10 a month, but any little amount is going to add up eventually. And it will accumulate into something that is substantial that you can put towards, if you decide you want to take a vacation in the year, that money can go towards that vacation when it's time to go.
And the key is to forget that you put it there so you can take it out. That is the problem with most savings. People will say, well, I was saving, but then I needed my money. But you've got to put it away and let it there. And every month it becomes just a regular part of your budget. Then when you really need it for something like vacation or like a major purchase that's going to cost quite a bit, you have some money to put towards it. That doesn't mean it's going to cover everything, but it will reduce what you have to spend later.
Absolutely. Just touching back on a thing that you said earlier too, Karen, about being denied, you know, especially younger couples and single people, things like that. Everybody's going to get denied at one time or another in their life for credit. But you got to remember, the lenders are in business to lend you money, and they have federal, state, and government regulations as well as the company guidelines that they have to file. You know, some people think that they try to deny you for any reason, but that's simply not true. The lenders want to make the loans, but they want to make them to people that will repay the loan. That's where your credit comes into play. So if you are turned down for a credit card or a loan, ask why. It doesn't do you any good to get upset with whoever turns you down, because more than likely it could be for a number of reasons and absolutely beyond their control. It's just a guideline that they follow.
If you are late or if you cannot pay a credit card bill when you want, that happens. That happens to all of us. So look at the balance due and the minimum payment. Pay whatever you can along with the minimum payment. So if it's $50 along with the minimum payment, that's $20, that means you pay $70. Next month, you're going to have some interest on what wasn't paid. Right away when you get the bill, look at your minimum payment and add in another chunk. This should, if you work this out in about 4 months, you'll pay very little interest and you will pay the whole thing off. Now, if you keep charging on that account, you're going to get into higher interest and more interest. So don't charge on it, just get it paid off. And you have to make, and it's difficult, but you have to make the money you have for budget stretch. Our problem today, and it's society's problem, is we don't want to live on our income, we want to live on our income plus credit. But we don't want to say we have expenses less credit. We want to say we have expenses, and therefore we have extra money. Well, we don't have extra money. Because you need to always consider your credit income debt. That's debt that must be paid within 30 days. Now let's talk about the positive side of credit for a bit. If you do not have any credit, you will not be buying a house. You will not be buying a car. You will not be getting anything fancy, because it has to be done with credit. In order to get any major purchase, lenders need to know that you're going to repay the debt. And they only do that through the credit, or the collateral, or the capacity, like Cindy mentioned. But if you don't build any, if you stay straight cash basis, you're never going to be able to go to anybody and say, I need a loan for this, because you have a blank sheet of paper to give them. They have to have proof of who you are. Furthermore, they'll pull your credit report, and when they see your credit score is about 500 or so, they're gonna say, this person doesn't have any, I don't have any proof this person ever paid a bill on time. Why would I wanna be the first? When you go to look for cars, the car dealer will apply for loans for you. Those are all inquiries that go on your credit report, and they stay there for 2 years. So you need to first tell them, no, you don't want them to do that, ordering them not to do it, and then do your own looking. So you can protect yourself with credit, or you can get into a real problem with it, depending upon how you behave. But first, you've got to have your basic budget, and you've got to know how much credit you can work with. And believe me, these credit card companies will send you credit cards with 1,000, 10,000, 15, 20,000 available credit. So make sure that you know what you can, and keep only 2 cards handy. Put the rest away. Put them in your safe deposit box or safe or something, unless you just don't want to have them. Another little tidbit of information on that is your oldest credit cards are the best, because they are going to show credit repayment proof for many years. The oldest one we have goes back to 1967. And we always, every now and then we talk about getting rid of some cards. I go, well, we don't want to get rid of that one, ever.
Well, and you can correct your credit score. And one, just to touch back on another thing too, if you don't have any credit, the best way for you to establish credit is go to your bank or lending institution that you normally do business with, if you have one, and ask them if they have like a secured credit card, where you can give them, let's say, $300 to $500 that they hold in an account on that credit card. And then as you charge and you make payments, they'll send you a statement, and you make payments to them every month. That balance just basically stays the same. But they know that if you don't make your payments as you've agreed, they have that money to recover that loss. So, and that is, it will show on your credit report, you know, the longer you have it, obviously, that you have made payments, because the best way you can achieve good credit is by making all your payments as agreed in full every month.
And that affects your credit the most.
Yes.
Many people feel it's the amount of income you make. No, that's not on your credit report, and that's not a big deal. The amount of moving around that you do, in other words, job to job in different fields, that's not good. But the most important thing is paying all of your bills every month on time.
And you mentioned earlier about the balances that you have. These credit card companies that offer you a $10,000 credit limit, the rule of thumb is basically not to have more than a third of your credit balance, or your credit limit as a balance. And that helps repair your credit also.
Even a small credit card can get you into trouble if you don't pay attention. A person told me one time that when he was in college, he moved around a lot, and he knew his bills didn't always get to him, but he figured if he didn't have the bills, they weren't due. It wasn't until he got out of college and got married, and he and his wife went to get a loan for the house, and he found out his credit was rotten because of all of those times when he didn't pay. So their interest rate on their house was far higher than what it could have been had those payments been addressed. So don't think just because you moved, payments aren't due. And I got a little rental property, and I have seen bills in people's mailboxes where they just aren't telling the post office.
Yeah. Well, you have to remember to, you know, when you have a credit card, you are going to pay some additional fees. You want to read the disclosures that the people that offer you these cards, you know, send to you, so that you know what you're getting yourself into, because there's not just interest, which obviously can accumulate a lot, But there's late fees, over limit fees, cash advance fees, annual fees, balance transfer fees. You know, there's just a host of other charges that they have available to them to assess to you. And you are the one that ends up paying those. You know, if you have a credit card, and let's say, just for an example, the interest rate is like 18%, and you're allowed to make a monthly payment of like 2% on a $2,000 balance. It will take you over 30 years to pay off that credit card. And you will have paid an additional $4,931.15 in interest to the original $2,000 that you charged. So there is a lot of cost to credit. But there again, it can be something that will enhance your life. You know, it's useful and often necessary, but while it is useful, it can be very costly to you if you carry a balance from month to month. So again, we recommend you pay your balance in full each month. If you can't, make a minimum payment plus some additional money each month that you have to carry that balance.
I don't want to get into legalese, but there's a danger in having joint credit cards. You should really have individual credit cards, each person in a couple. You also should never charge on the other person's card. Today you can file bankruptcy and your spouse not file bankruptcy, but the spouse will be left out of it only if that person has not had any benefit of the cards, and the house isn't jointly held and the car is not jointly held. So it's very important that those things be done separately.
I didn't know that. My credit cards are all with my husband jointly. You recommend we have individual credit cards?
If you are to get a divorce and there's a bunch of debt sitting there, the attorneys will probably say, well, you're making more money than he's making more money than she is, so we'll give him 60%, her 40%, and that's the way we're gonna split it. You pay your 40%, he doesn't pay his 60%, his 60% comes to you.
Because it's joint?
Yes. So the best thing you can do is get separate accounts and always hold them separately. So if you go to the same store and you want to buy this, you use your card and he could use his card. But we have gas cards, 2 separate cards. I'm held responsible for mine, my husband's for his. We get one bill. The only time that's going to come into place is if we have an issue and we need to look at who charged what. It's much safer. Sometimes we look at our contracts and we say for repaying debt for people,